So F1 75 was not the only big F1 event that happened this week. The F1 Commission met in London to discuss, amongst other things, how to make the Monaco Grand Prix a bit more interesting. And if rumours are to be believed, then we're going to see more pit stops at Monaco by dint of the fact that the FIA will enforce that all teams use all three tyre compounds at the Monaco Grand Prix. Ammar, mandatory pit stops, 2 of them at least at the Monaco Grand Prix. What the hell? What do you think?
And regardless of the conditions, if Christian Horner's codes are to be believed.
Correct, regardless of the conditions. So if there is a wet race, you still have to come in for multiple pit stops to go onto the dry tyres. Ammar, what's going on?
Yeah, I cannot be down for this. I mean, this is the most ridiculous thing I've heard, right? And I will give you 3 reasons why this is a bad idea. And let me just start by saying that this is an unnecessary reach on the FIA's part to try to tinker with something that is okay. It isn't broken. It isn't great, but it isn't broken either. So why fix it? Here's the number 1 reason why I think they shouldn't do this. Monaco is Monaco. Unless you are going to change the track layout or you're not going to race over there, there is nothing you can do to get more wheel-to-wheel racing, particularly in this era of Formula One cars that are so big that it's just impossible, impossible to be able to race wheel-to-wheel, no matter what you do. I mean, you could do a reverse grid and it wouldn't matter. Like it's just a bad idea from that standpoint because this is not the circuit. Second reason, Chez, no one goes to Monaco or watches Monaco for the actual racing. And let me just preface my comments here by saying, I don't mean that I don't watch Monaco because I don't care about the sport. Of course I do. Everyone that watches Monaco or goes to Monaco as a venue goes for everything that's available off track. It has always been about the casinos and the glitz and the glamour and everything that's out there. No one goes there to say, wow, I'm going to get such a brilliant wheel-to-wheel race today that's going to blow my mind. Like, I can't think in history. Yes, there have been moments and there have been wheel-to-wheel racing, but particularly in this era of Formula One cars that are so big, you're not going there for that. But yet, Monaco has its own charm. Everyone that's Formula One fan loves Monaco and Monza for reasons that go beyond just getting eyeballs or butts in seats, and they will be fine. There's no reason to tinker with that because that is the joy of Formula One. I mean, Monaco, the king of Monaco. We talk about Senna, we talk about Charles Leclerc, we talk about everyone in between that has done so much great racing there. We don't need wheel-to-wheel racing. The third thing, Shez, and this is the most egregious one, right? Just visualize the idea of mandatory pit stops and what that does. That is essentially a reverse grid or some kind of jumbled up grid. Like it could happen. It could well be that you might have towards the end of the last 5 or 10 laps in the race, you could have a Williams in the lead. You could have a Haas in the lead, which is not the worst idea. You could have a Stake Sauber in the lead. And none of these other guys that are clearly better and quicker cars would have a shot of getting past them. It just wouldn't even work. Shez, if you go around and run simulations on how this would happen, a bad pit stop could ruin somebody's race. And oh, by the way, next year we go into a season where we know it's going to be tight at the top. At least the top 3 teams and 4, if you want to include Mercedes, they're going to be in it. This race could be very pivotal in deciding a championship, especially if the lead driver or one of the protagonists does not get a fair shake in the way the pit stops work out, or if there's a mistake or something like that. And we know every time you have extra pit stops, there are things that can go wrong. You can have wasn't it Valtteri Bottas who got stuck with the wheel?
That's the point, Ammar.
Yeah. So why do you want? Why do you want
I think that's the point of. I think that's the point of introducing mandatory pit stops.
So that is the idea that it. Am I right? Valtteri Bottas was stuck with that wheel nut or wheel gun in it, right? So that happened in Monaco too, by the way.
Yeah, but that happened with one pit stop. Yeah. So
yeah, but that happened with doing three.
Like I'm not agreeing with this, but what you're saying is that you don't want extra pit stops because it increases the jeopardy of a pit stop. I would argue that the reason the FIA are wanting this, or F1 are wanting this, is because
look at what you're doing.
It's because they want to increase the jeopardy. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I would say that's why they're doing it.
If I am a Max Verstappen or a Lando Norris, the 2 top favorites to win next year, right, or Oscar Piastri, you're putting my Monaco result in the hands of the mechanic. When you don't need to do a pit stop, you don't need to do a pit stop. Why would you do that? It makes no sense. There's no reason for it. If that's what you want to do,
Yeah.
just
Okay.
give them 2 sets of tires for the whole weekend and say, make it work. Do
Okay.
whatever you want with
Okay.
it, and then we have with it.
Okay. Ammar, so in essence, I agree with you, but not quite for the reasons that you're saying. Because what you're saying is that the Monaco Grand Prix is boring, but we should just accept that because it's Monaco. Essentially,
It's not.
what
It's
you.
not boring.
If you
It's not boring,
if you
Shaz.
paraphrase what you've just said, you
I
don't
didn't say
watch the
boring.
Monaco. Yeah, that's why I said it's not a quote, but I'm paraphrasing what you're saying. The Monaco Grand Prix, you don't watch it for the racing because there isn't any, but you should just lump it because it's Monaco. And I would argue that's not correct. I do think
I'm saying that this is not the solution for it.
that's not what you're saying. But anyway, I do think that the Monaco Grand Prix does need to be fixed. I would argue that this is not the way to do it, which isn't quite what you said, but I'm glad you agree with me
I
now.
did say I talk about the cars being big, and and there's no space to increase the track. But
Yeah. Okay. So
what are you gonna do?
number one, I do want to play out what this would look like. All you're doing, essentially, I think, is that currently the way that the Monaco Grand Prix runs is you qualify on pole and then you run the race at the slowest possible rate to not kill your tyres. All that would happen is that you would still run the race at the slowest possible rate, just slightly quicker because you have to do an extra pit stop. And everybody would, within 1 or 2 runnings of this race with a mandatory pit stop, work out when the best time to do that would be, and then just come in and do it at that time. So you just have the same procession broken up by a couple of little pit stops that then continue the same procession. I don't think it actually changes anything other than it
does.
introduces an extra level of jeopardy at each pit stop, which I think is what they're trying to do anyway. But that isn't real racing. I agree with you. If you're actually going to fix the Monaco Grand Prix, there are some fundamentals that need to be changed. The first one, don't let drivers that cause a red flag keep their lap time. Why is that even a thing? Why is it that IndyCar can get that right, and yet Formula One, the pinnacle of motorsport, cannot get a simple thing right? That if you cause a red flag on your qualifying lap, you don't get to keep your fastest lap. I'm sorry, but that's an easy one. Then you don't get...
That doesn't make the race exciting.
No, but it does at least make it a proper race. Number one. Second, you're not addressing the reason why this is happening, right? Which is, as you said, that the cars are too big. They've already looked into trying to extend the track and take it to different places, but there just isn't the real estate to allow them to do that. Okay, so we have to accept that certain things, at the moment at least, are a non-starter, but the cars, they can be. And I would argue with you, Ammar, that people did watch Monaco for the racing. Right, I've just finished reading Enzo Ferrari's biography, and Monaco's been on the calendar for as long as it has because when it was first around, and for the first 50 years of it, it was one of the most exciting races on the calendar. It was there even before F1 turned up. And why was that? Because the cars were smaller, because they could overtake, because they relied much more on mechanical grip rather than aero. So, okay, we're not going to turn the clock back on aero, but when you can't even get one car to get round Lowe's hairpin without hitting the barrier, you've got a big freaking problem. Luckily, the 2026 rules are going to address that somewhat by having narrower cars, slightly shorter cars. So that does help. The cars will be slightly smaller. You will be able to have 2 cars potentially going side to side, but that I don't think goes far enough. And it's not just for track, it's not just for Monaco. This is something that would be true for any track. Having a narrow car, smaller car, makes it a bit more nimble. But the main thing that needs to change is, rather than mandating a minimum weight that is there to essentially appease the teams, just set a reasonable minimum weight of, say, I don't know, between 650 and 750 kilos, get it back to the levels that it was in sort of 2010 to 2013, and just have the engineers at each team within a budget cap. That's why you've got the budget cap. Have the engineers within that budget cap just work out what they can do to get that minimum weight down, because you can bet your bottom dollar that if you give them a minimum weight to go for, they'll go for it. Smaller cars, lighter cars, cancel the red flags, cancel the laps caused by a red flag. Boom, there you go.
It sounds like you agree with me, Shez, because you just gave me reasons to. This is not a.
I do agree with you. I don't think that you need to have
but
mandatory pit stops. So what I'm arguing with you about is that you just accept that that's Monaco and just go fine,
Yes, you
whatever.
are. Because everything you suggested was, yeah, just accept it's Monaco and do everything you can to change the car, which is essentially my point. Look, when I said I didn't say that the Monaco race is boring, but if you were to rank your top 10 most exciting venues, not knowing what the outcome is before you go there, you do not put Monaco in exciting for the on-track stuff, other than if you enjoy the track layout, if you enjoy seeing drivers go through the swimming pool corner and all of those things and Rascas and all of those things that matter to you, which is something that most of us that love the sport dearly do. For the normal fan, that is not the race they would pick to be there to see racing. They would be there to be a part of festivities.
Oh, I would argue massively with that, because
they are not,
because Monaco.
Jess, let me finish.
Monaco is definitely. This is important.
But they are not there. They are not there to see Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen race each other corner after corner. That's not going to happen.
Not true, man.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, but Monaco
in this era, by the way.
But Monaco is worth going to if you're going to sit there and actually watch the race at the venue, because it's the closest you're ever going to get to a Formula One car in action.
So it's fine.
But on TV,
it's fine the way it is. It's fine the way it is. That's my point. You don't need to engender excitement, because it is exciting, but for a different set of reasons. It is not exciting necessarily because you will have drivers go at it corner after corner, because there's no way to do it. There's just no way to do it. Therefore, you don't go to Monaco with the idea of looking for that. You can go to other racetracks for that. My point is, it is exciting enough as it is. It is not boring. It's quite the opposite. It's exciting for different reasons. I think Formula One should leave it as it, because here's the other point. You have 24 races in the calendar. There is no need to tinker around with every single racetrack to kind of make things happen, because no matter what you do, there's going to be some element of weather. There's going to be some element of something somewhere happening that might just play into it anyway. So in a 24 race season, not everyone has to be wheel to wheel to wheel to wheel if that's not what the circuit can handle. It's simple. And Ches, here's the thing. Here's the answer, the question that no one wants to ask. If it is so boring, why not just move away from it? You cannot move away from it, because the easier answer is just go find another track. There's so many that would love to be on the calendar. That would be exciting.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That you can move to another racetrack. But as I say, Monaco doesn't have to be the way it is right now, because historically it has not been this way. It has only been this way since the cars have got wider and wider and wider. Yes. So change the cars. So I don't accept. I don't accept that we just have to leave Monaco as it is and just accept it for what it is, because it's exciting enough as it is. It isn't. Like watching.
We're having a debate on vocabulary. You and I are agreeing. Monaco as a track cannot be changed. You're talking about changing the cars, which is 100% correct. And that would apply, by the way, to Imola as well. That could apply to other places as well. There's no doubt about that. But there's no reason to fundamentally try to architecture some kind of excitement that doesn't even involve wheel-to-wheel racing, Shez. If you said that more pit stops was going to equal more wheel-to-wheel racing, I'd be down for that. But I think just playing the odds.
Well, I mean, and that I agree with, right? Like, I don't think changing the mandatory number of pit stops changes anything, but there are things that can be done that would change Monaco. That is my argument. It's not to just accept it as it is and leave it. Anyway, I think we are arguing semantics at the moment, and I feel like we're probably going to keep going down that route. The only thing I would say about mandatory pit stops is that if we were in a refueling era, then I think it changes the game a little bit, because you would have different
bring back refueling.
You would have differing fuel loads. Yeah, I mean, but yeah,
well,
I don't think you can bring a rig back just for a single race because of the safety implications that it has. So that it becomes a bit more tricky.
But you can have unnecessary pit stops. and
Yeah, I agree.
sustainability
Yeah, I
out of
agree.
the
I
window
think the whole
because
thing is
you know,
nonsense. I don't think you need
you know,
extra mandatory pit stops. Just change the cars, which
well,
hopefully that's the trend that we're going to go down from 2026 onwards. Right. That's enough arguing for us from us on that one. Let us know what you think. Mandatory pit stops, Monaco. Do they need them? Will it work? Are you happy with it the way it is at the moment? You've heard what we think. Let us know what you think. Please like, please subscribe, please leave us a comment. We will read every single one and we will respond to as many as we possibly can. And we will see you guys in the next one.
later.